Hey everyone, it's me, Red. I'm doing something a little different here today. I'll be sharing with you my top 5 favorite Filipino horror films. So this one video will actually serve as kind of like 5 reviews. Well, actually 6 because I want to be starting with an honorable mention, which is a movie that I don't think anyone really expects to be here. A bit of a wild card pick. And it's Zombadings 1. Patayin sa Shokot si Remington. Directed by Jade Castro in 2011. The English title is Remington and the Curse of the Zombadings. And if that last word still is unfamiliar to you English speakers, it's because it's actually a made-up word. It's a portmanteau of zombie and bading, and then the S making it plural. Bading is the Tagalog word for gay. Yeah. It's great. I think a lot of people overlook this one because it's just so unashamed of how kitschy and campy and gay it is. I mean, just look at this poster. It's about the titular Remington, who starts the movie as a typical macho cishet straight man, and he as a child would make fun of people for being gay. He would harass them, and he did this to one of his neighbors, who ended up putting a curse on him to one day turn gay himself. And while this transformation happens, a series of murders occur within the city, all being dealt towards the gay community. So again, this is definitely taking up that B-movie culty horror tradition, where you can already take from the summary like a bunch of horror tropes, like that typical werewolf transformation trope, or like the mysterious serial killings kind of trope, but subverted and centered around queerness, and it's pretty fun. I think it's pretty funny. Filipino humor is just one of the most special things to me, but I think that a lot of comedy movies have a hard time, like pinning it down. I think this is best to be watched with friends. Me and my girlfriend watched it and had a great time together. It's one of those movies that give you a lot of things to throw side comments at. Plenty of interesting politics at play too. Of course, with its treatment of gender politics, the showing of macho feudal patriarchy, that system, and the confrontations between them. But I think also their treatment of the police is to be of note here, because there is also like a tension between the queer community and the police. But yeah, a lot of its ideas are very eccentric, and it wears those proudly on its sleeve. It's very extra, but in a way that almost feels genuine, and it's also just very self-aware. I think the latter parts kind of dipped for me, though the build-up was just amazing, and that kind of prevents it from being like a top tier horror pick for me. And I think it's clear from this pick, but I'm never really one to prioritize scariness for horror movies. But yeah, this is probably the most fun movie on this video, on this list. The rest of these films, though, are just better all in all, and though the ranking of them is pretty loose, I'd rather you just listen to the descriptions of them, because these movies, each of them, I've already seen as like potential subjects for their own focused and prepared videos. I'm also not an expert on any of these. I admit that even Philippine horror is sort of a blind spot for me. This is a personal favorites list, reflecting my taste right now. And my hope is that maybe, like every Halloween, I could update this list. Like every year having explored more. So let's get on with the top 5. Starting with Pangarap ng Puso by the one and only Mario O'Hara. It was made in the year 2000, which means it's approaching the twilight of his illustrious career. It's another film that blends the genre of horror with, this time with romance and drama. It was actually called Whispers of the Demon before, but the studio changed it to Hope of the Heart, which, that's Pangarap ng Puso. They did this because it was not successful at the box office nor with the critics, and actually I don't see much of a following for it even right now anywhere, sadly. But yeah, horror romance. It's the story of two lovers, a rich girl and a poor boy. She owns the farmlands that he works in, and it spans from their childhood and follows their development into adulthood. And the horror here is supernatural, psychological, and political. You can call this a monster movie. It centers around the mythic figure of the capre, which in Philippine folklore, that's like a dark and tall troll that lives on trees. It takes that simple idea and really, really stretches it. It spans wide. Like I said, this movie starts from childhood, where it's about innocence and imagination, and then it moves on to the adolescence stage, where it's more about exposure and loss, and then their young adulthood, where it's about corruption and demonization. It's great how all of these concepts are just woven into each other in the personal and political, and it's set in a very horrific time in Philippine history. But yeah, it has a lot of ambition in telling its story. I could see this becoming like twice as big. If I remember correctly, this was made under the Pito Pito system. So that means that the production process wouldn't really be able to match its scope, that kind of scope, I mean. But I still think that it's charming in its simplicity, and it's the risks that it was allowed to take because of that production process. It's a very quick and cheap type of system, the Pito Pito system. That's what allows. That's what enables it to do the great things that it does. I could just be saying that I want it to build more of its great ideas, because right now all of it's super elusive. It's at the top of my list of movies most deserving of a rewatch, because these ideas I haven't really been able to completely piece them together, because they are so elusive and beautiful. But that's also probably because it's just so in love with Filipino poetry. So that kind of style is probably its intended journey that it wants to take us on. Next, I have a movie that's it's another one that I think no one expected me to put here. It's a short film, and it was made only in 2019. I'm talking about Octogod, which multimedia artist Shevar Oligario directed and produced and wrote and shot and sound designed and starred in as the only character. Pretty sure he did the graphics too, and that along with doing this editing and is just an incomprehensible amount of work
For such a small crew. Props to everyone who worked on it.
and it is about that how overwhelming work is for an artist of that trade. And another thing that leads to burnout is that dreadful alienation that presenting working and living presenting on the internet would give you. And that way it's almost kind of prophetic on how universal an experience that would be, because this was still made in 2019. Yeah, really cool, really maximalist. It reminds me of Enter the Void, only if it had like 10% of the budget probably. And I also don't think I could describe a movie as digital body horror before. It kind of parallels Tetsuo the Iron Man in how it tries to constantly one-up itself with transforming and just creating these increasingly complex, grotesque imagery. This spot should really belong to the entire filmography, the entire body of work of Chevar Oligario, which it doesn't really even add up yet to like a single feature film length-wise, but it's just the most exciting thing to me. And I know for a fact that these are underseen because I had to be the one to add them on Letterboxd myself. One of them is called Genesis, which is where Octogod was birthed out of. And it's called Genesis for that too, but it also brings out that theme through imagery of like dark matter, which is the birth of the universe, the genesis of the universe, and images of the womb, which is the genesis of the body, us. And it has all of that maximalist quality that Octogod has, but in a much shorter amount of time too. The other one is Pleasure a Memory, which is even shorter. Both of these are just like a minute long, and it's great. It's his most different. It's just my cup of tea though, like I love it so much. It's just like a simple, intriguing concept. Like here, it's about a data storage device that is used to stimulate the sensation of touch. And it just goes with that abstract concept. It uses it to go to just such off-kilter forms and with so much ingenuity. It reminds me a lot of the music videos of Chris Cunningham. Yeah, and that reminds me, these works, it just shows like this artist really has like the eyes and the ears for aesthetics. I like how being this independent just allows them to be so radical, completely extreme with their talent. Now for a completely different film again, I have for this spot Karnal by Marilu Diaz Abaya. Karnal as in carnal, as in of the flesh, which is a great name for this movie. It's all about that repressed bodily desire that's just found in humanity. It's a Southern Gothic genre exercise, making it very special here, but at the same time, it's also really essential as a story to be told, I think. I like the detail about this that the production designer and the director looked at Amarsola paintings for reference in portraying the idyllic images of the Philippine provinces. Those paintings do serve to bury the darkness and conflict that pervades the Philippine provincial society. So this movie embraces those images, but also exposes the horrific underlying stories that would exist if the images were actual living people. It has its own great imagery. Far from that, it's like one of the most technically proficient Filipino movies I've seen. Just with how it's shot, how it's written and edited and scored. Oh, and the performance are amazing too, of course. Yeah, and of course the production design went hard too, as a period piece for the 1930s. All of this perfect filmmaking craft though really does serve to tell this great story. Great, eerie, thick atmosphere. The setting is fantastic. It has this great quote about it, describing it as isang lugar na napakalayo, isang hakbang mo pa at nasa impyerno ka na. It's that typical middle of nowhere town, where all the townspeople too are just like a bunch of caricatures, and the conflict does arise from that clash of cultures, because the movie starts with our protagonist going back home. It's the male lead's hometown, and they just got there from Manila. We're introduced to that familiar story of people going to Manila because of how promising it was, but then ending up becoming even worse than before. You can find that story in a lot of classic Filipino films because of how prominent that dynamic just exists in reality. Representations of the norms and social mores from reality are pretty uncomfortable to watch here, because they do just represent that real lust for dominance, fear of emasculation, the tendency to demonize and oppress women. This movie is a diagnosis of that, or at the very least, it's a skillful and spooky exploration of that. This next pick falls under the found footage subgenre, which is a subgenre I wanna look into more from the small portion that I've seen and liked. But I think after I do so, this movie has the potential to just still end up as the pinnacle of that category for me. I'm of course talking about Salvage by Sherrod Anthony Sanchez. It was made in 2015. It follows a news team investigating some rumors of aswang killings in a remote forest adjacent barrio. They were then attacked by the soldiers, which leads to them running for their lives. The cameraman keeps shooting, and it's through that camera that we watch the movie. It has a bunch of intense stealth sequences in this because of that, chase sequences, even some funny ones. And of course, there are the horror elements from that. But then there are some surrealist elements too. A big part that I love about this movie is its glitch art. It really executes a lot of different types of horror through this. The choice to shoot a movie in handheld in a forest, it makes me feel like this is one of those cursed tapes of people looking for cryptids. I mean, it kind of is, but I really did feel like there were some milliseconds where I actually saw the aswang at the corner of my eye, or just an inch out of frame, but I could never really know for sure. The glitchiness of the images create a lot of amazing abstract horror in this too. It can be something impressionistic, glitch meshing with leaves and looking like thick brushstrokes, or completely expressionistic. The visual strike of things that are really pointy and corrupted digitally. I love how the delayed data moshing kind of creates like a jump scare level tension, and when it gets so bad, everything seems so unrecognizable already, and you're so overwhelmingly lost. Then there's the social horror aspect of the movie. This comes mostly from the presentation of corrupted media, and I don't mean like the glitchy type of corrupted media, but it kind of blends together when presenting the shortcomings of what happens when commerce dictates our media. Then there is, of course, the soldiers, which are the real monsters of the film. I don't really think that's much of a spoiler. I mean, it's kind of a well-known thing now that they do have impunity and commit atrocities, and even historically have used the aswang myth as a scapegoat and as psychological warfare against people. I definitely want to talk more about this one. There's just so much more to appreciate and bring up, and even like some still like mysterious things to me that I haven't fully grasped yet. And I was even thinking about using this movie as my Halloween video topic, but I think instead I'll just go with my number one pick. Yeah, I'm finishing the script for that one still. Hopefully mentioning it here would pressure me to get it done sooner. I think it's my longest video, or either that or this one. I'm not really sure how long this has gone. But that one I'll make sure to go back to a more focused and scripted video, because it kind of calls for it. The movie is an undisputed classic. It's Kisapmata by Mike De Leon. It's a giant in the history of Philippine cinema. It's a personal top 10 for me. Not just horror, not just Filipino, just all time. A ton has been said about this movie. I mean, it's pretty darn perfect, and it all works so well. Like, every single part of it just fits and works. It's a pretty simple story on its face. It's adapted from a news article written by Nick Joaquin. It's the story of a household where the patriarch has unnerving control and domination over the rest of the household. His wife, his daughter, and their household help. The protagonist here is the daughter, and the events of the film are sparked with the revelation that she's pregnant. This, of course, leads the tense conflict with the father's possessive reactions, especially with the intrusion of the daughter's boyfriend turned husband. The story plays out. It's really tense and effective, and it moves so well. The casting is perfect. The performances are top-notch. I'm sure a lot of people would vouch that Vixelayan here has just gives the greatest performance in Philippine cinema history as the patriarch, as the father figure. The production design is definitely one of my favorite parts about it, and it's so potent here because majority of the movie does play out within that single house, and yeah, it's actually gonna be the topic of my next video, the architecture. Yeah, it's very grounded. Definitely like the most realistic movie on this list. So I could see why people wouldn't even categorize this as horror, maybe more like a thriller. But I think it stands as that. Not many movies have been able to just fill me with so much dread, and I really would feel nervous and feel fear for the protagonists here. The grounded nature of it kind of just makes you fear for reality. I mean, this has happened, and this could happen again, and it could be happening right now. And it's politically very sharp. It's in the canon of greatest martial law films because of its negative presentation of fascism, as well as just being set at the time. Yeah, fantastic film all around. It's probably at the top of a lot of people's lists of this type. So please do tell me if any of these movies are in your list, or if I said something that, you know, made you want to put one of these into your watch list at least. Yeah, please tell me, like, give me your lists in the comments, so I could shed some light on this admitted blind spot. And yeah, this local genre. And maybe, who knows, like, maybe I'll feature it on like the next updated video in the future. I like how this turned out though. I think this list gives a pretty diverse sample of where horror goes in the Philippines, whether it be like towards the campy or comedic, and even to the romantic and the poetic, and then to the radical and experimental, then to the gothic and prestige, to the dirty, then, and the surreal, and then to the real and the gritty. Yeah, horror could just do so much. So yeah, I can't wait to dive deeper into that, and maybe next time I could share my favorite horror films from everywhere else around the world. Yeah, let me know if you want to hear that. Should I make more list videos? What topics would you like for that? Are you cool with this type of video, by the way? Like the more casual vlog type thing. Yeah, give me any type of feedback. Comment, email me. Subscribe to, of course, if you do like this kind of stuff. And again, more videos on the way. Look forward to that. And enjoy your Halloween. See ya.